You use a for loop when you want to iterate through a list of values. And so the basic syntax of a for loop, which is one of the iteration statements that you can use, is in this form, right? So for loop has a three elements. First one is the initialization part. It's separated by a semicolon. And then the second element is the condition. The condition is a Boolean expression wherein if it evaluates to true, then you execute the code within your for loop. And the third element would be the increment or decrement part. All right. So this could be adding a certain value or subtracting a certain value. So how does that look like as an example? So we have several examples that we will go through for this one. All right. And before I forget, uh, the body of a for loop is enclosed in a curly brace or a set of curly braces. Now, these curly braces are optional. If you only have a single line of code, then you can uh, forego using the curly braces. Okay. And so let's proceed with our first example. So here we have used an array. So we have an array of strings that we have initialized here. We named it themes. Okay, and now we have our first for loop statement. So take notice that we all have our three important elements for this one, and uh, it's up to you really to decide if you want each of these elements to be present in your for loop. It depends on the logic that you are or the logic that the goal of your logic for your code. All right, so but basically these are the three basic elements of a for loop. Okay, so first we have our initialization part, wherein here we have declared a variable. So commonly you use an I or any single letter variable. You can have multiple initializations here or variable declarations. So whatever you declare in this part will be available within the body of your for loop. Okay, so it will be available within these curly braces. Okay, next up is our initialization, or I mean sorry, our condition section, wherein we have here a Boolean expression that once it evaluates to true, then it would execute code within our for loop body. And so we have here our condition would be if our I is less than the value of our array or the length of our array, then we proceed with our code. And lastly, the last element is our increment decrement part, which in this case is we increment our uh, initialized value here, all right, or our variable that you have declared from our initialization part. Okay, and so if you do forget or uh, if you do not have this section, the increment decrement, then you have you will end up most likely with a infinite loop. All right, since your initialization or control variable here in this first section doesn't change at all. Okay, and so that would be something that adds or gives control to your for loop. And then we have our actual body of our for loop, which is a simple one, which we write out to our console. Okay, if we quickly run this one, then we should be getting this output wherein all the values of our array has been printed out to our console. Okay, so now that's your basic for loop with an array. Now let's go to our next example. So it's basically almost the same as our array one, but in this case we have used a list. So we have used here a variable of a list of strings. Okay, And then again, we go through the same format for our for loop. We have our initialization part, and then we have our condition. In this case, we don't have that length property for our list, but we have the count, which we can compare against. Okay, and then our increment. Now, the increment, you can also, if you want to go uh, from if you want to go forward, or you go backwards or in reverse. All right, so this would mean that in your initialization part, you would initialize it as the number of the length of your list, and then in this case you can just use the decrement or I minus minus. All right, if you want to traverse through your list going backwards from the last element through to the first element. Okay, that's one way of also using for loops. And basically with this one, if you run this one, we'd get the same output. Okay, same output as the array 1 example. Okay, and lastly, we have also an example here where we have used a list of objects. Okay, so we have here our uh, team, a list of teams. Now the team here is now an object, or from based of this class. Okay, we have set up here our team class with basic properties, name and score, and then we've initialized it here to become our list of teams. And with our for loop statement, again, it's basically almost the same as the array list from these previous examples. We just go through the same uh, for loop structure, but in this case we have uh, displayed, or part of the output would be showing the name and the score. But yeah, you should get the idea of what the basic structure of a for loop is. But if we quickly run this one, we should be seeing a list of teams and their scores. Okay, and so yeah, that is your for loop.